Well, last week, you may recall, Megyn Kelly made some controversial remarks regarding blackface on Halloween. Here's a reminder, just in case somehow you missed it.
What is racist? Because truly, you do get in trouble if you are a white person who puts on blackface on Halloween, or a black person who puts on whiteface for Halloween. Like back when I was a kid, that was okay as long as you were dressing up as like a character.
Well, since then, NBC announced Kelly will no longer be hosting her 9 a.m. show.
But her comments have many people talking. With Halloween just 2 days away, some are wondering what costumes are and are not appropriate. So joining us now to break down the difference between appreciation and appropriation is founder and director of Fashion Law Institute at Fordham University School of Law, Susan Scafidi. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Vlad and Anne-Marie. Thank you for having me.
Pretty much every Halloween, somebody does something. There's a picture that goes viral where you see somebody, you know, in blackface or wearing like a heavy brown makeup, and there's outrage, and then it happens again the following year.
It does.
Like, it's somehow some people just are not getting it, right?
It does. It's the same thing with feathered headdresses at Coachella, right? You hear it again, you're schooled, and you do it anyway.
So just to set the context of this discussion, give us a history of blackface and why it's not okay. I mean, I don't think sometimes people don't seem to understand that there's an enormous amount of history around this subject.
Absolutely. At the Fashion Law Institute, we like to say we're not the fashion police, but we can be the fashion conscience. So in the case of blackface, it's not just trying to look like someone else. It is a whole history of minstrelsy and stereotyping with all of the worst possible stereotypes of ignorance and criminality and laziness and things like that that go into depicting a whole race of people as somehow less than. And it is that history that comes into play when we see blackface used at Halloween. It's all of that negativity that comes back to haunt us.
Yeah, you heard Megyn Kelly say something along the lines of, you know, people getting in trouble for wearing blackface versus wearing whiteface. There's no such thing as whiteface.
There's no
that
such
doesn't
thing.
exist because the history doesn't exist unless you're a mime, which is like not a big deal,
That's the only thing we could think of.
Yeah, so
mimes are clowns.
Right. So that was another thing that she said that I thought that doesn't make any sense at all. But explain to people the difference between appropriation and appreciation. I remember last year, or maybe it was last year, a young lady wore a prom dress that was I think it was sort of Chinese or Asian inspired prom dress, and people started yelling appropriation online. It's not the same thing.
No, there is absolutely a difference, right? When we're talking about cultural appropriation generally, it's actually technically a neutral term, a descriptive term, shall we say, right? We're talking about taking from someone else's culture without either explicit or tacit permission something of their cultural products, right? And sometimes that can be really negative misappropriation. It can be harmful and hurtful. It can stomp all over the sacred or the secret. Other times, it is, in fact, with permission. Please eat my cuisine, please buy clothes from us and wear them, as in the case of the prom dress. So there can be differences in that regard. I think part of the concern about the prom dress was also posing in a traditional style that looked as though it were almost mocking. So that was part of the concern.
And that's how you know you crossed the line.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right?
You know, I've spoken to some people about this, and there are some people who are older and who say, you know, I don't understand what the issue is. And Anne-Marie raises a good point about the whiteface. Like, when I was a kid, I'm a huge Elvis Presley fan. People who watch this broadcast know that I love Elvis. And as a kid, I've probably gone as Elvis 10 times in my life. And no one looked at my rhinestone-studded jumpsuit and the cape and the rings and the microphone and said, who are you supposed to be, right? Everybody said, you must be Elvis Presley, even though I had not done anything to the complexion of my face or even my hair, right? I just wore the same hair that I have, you know, in reality. And I've gone as Bruce Lee many times, especially as a little kid. And I had the scratches on my chest, the scratches on my face, and I'd walk around like, you know, making karate poses, and no one ever said, like, why, who are you? You're not Asian. You're not. And so people understood that I was Bruce Lee. I think the difficulty for a lot of people is they say, well, if I want to go as Diana Ross or I want to go as Kobe Bryant, why can't I put myself in blackface? And we say what to that?
There are characteristics, as you pointed out, other than skin color.
Exactly.
That can be used to invoke a character. And the other thing is that Halloween is a particularly difficult time, right? Because in terms of the history of Halloween, when you dress up as a character, you're dressing up alongside ghosts and skeletons and demons and monsters and things that people are supposed to be scared of, or things that are supposed to frighten away other demons historically, right?
Right.
That should not be. people one shade darker than you.
Okay, so for a lot of people, though, they're not going to know the history of this sort of thing. They're not going to know why blackface is off. Is it good enough just to sort of use the rule of thumb that if it offends someone else, maybe you should not bother?
Well, there's always somebody who's going to be offended by something, right? So that might be a little bit broad of a rule, but certainly you should step back, and if someone is offended, learn why they're offended. And at that point, you can make an informed decision as opposed to a decision out of ignorance.
It's a Google search away.
That's right. And that, I think, Susan, is ultimately what a lot of people had a problem with Megyn Kelly. She makes millions of dollars a year to work, an hour a day, and it's not hard to find out what's going on. You're in the news business. You could claim ignorance, but it doesn't take a little bit of. You have a staff of people who spend their entire lives researching subjects for you. She gave that card away when she said she's not a PC person. That gave away the disingenuous nature of her apology.
Well, I'd also like to point out that she had discussed blackface before in a previous interview,
and
so she knew an awful lot more about it than she was sort of playing along in this interview.
Well, the comment about Santa, I think, when she told the children of America that Santa was quote unquote just white. Santa is just fictional, actually.
That's exactly
right. Even as coming from a historical character, probably a Mediterranean figure, actually.
Good point. Good point, Susan Scafidi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.